Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Steve Sabludowsky, publisher of BuyBuzz.com. We're going to be talking for a few minutes about the Louisiana Legislative Session, which is coming up later this afternoon. This will be the third session, and once again we have John Kay, and excuse me, and basically what we're going to be talking about is whether or not we can finesse a budget. John is the uh, director of the Louisiana chapter of the Americans for Prosperity. Good morning again, John. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm trying to stay dry, but I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much. I noticed that for some reason this is not streaming to your Facebook. I don't know why, but nevertheless. So I'll share it then to your
Oh, okay.
messenger.
Well,
Pardon?
that's fine.
Yeah, okay, and I'll share it to you. Twitter. Okay, so is the third time a charm?
I don't think so. I think that maybe it's a third time is a charm for passing a tax, but the third time's not the charm for the taxpayer. Uh, the question I asked on the radio this morning on WBRP is the same that I'll rhetorically ask here. Once this tax is raised, what does the taxpayer have to be excited about? Our economy is shrinking. Folks are moving out of the state. Our taxes, our temporary taxes are being extended. We're not getting tax reform. And the governor's vetoing bills that would have allowed us to see more of how our money's being spent. Uh, but yet they want more money. What do we have to be excited about as taxpayers? I guess the most exciting thing is maybe we don't have to go through any more special sessions this year. Uh, that seems like the one thing that maybe taxpayers have to look forward to.
Okay, so you seem a little bit uncertain to a little bit pessimistic. Does that mean that you think that maybe they will come up with a resolution?
I think that they've been close to passing the tax before. We're going to continue to work to do our best to make sure that nothing gets passed. But I think that they're probably pretty close to a deal from what I can tell. But I think that it's important to note that whether there's a deal that is hatched or not, that this deal represents a broken promise to taxpayers. And I think that's the one thing that's getting lost in the messaging from all sides. There's a lot of talk about whether or not this is a tax cut. There's a lot of talk about funding the government, but there's decreasing amounts of talk about the fact that this tax was never supposed to be extended. Although I can't say I didn't see it coming. I said back in 2016 that I don't believe there's any such thing as a temporary tax. The legislators are proving me out on that, at least to some degree. Um, so I think at the end of the day, the taxpayer has to wonder, what does the future of Louisiana look like? Does the future of Louisiana look like more temporary taxes? Does it look like holes that have to be patched every few years? Or will we get to a point where we have structural tax reform, structural budget reform, where we don't have to go through this anymore? This won't solve that. This may solve this year's budget hole, but this won't solve the problems that Louisiana faces in the future. And I don't want people to get confused and believe that it will. This is going to temporarily, if it's passed, it will temporarily patch a hole, but we still have the problems that have plagued us for years past. I mean, we've had a temporary patch on this for a couple of years, and we're still seeing negative GDP growth. This won't fix that. Uh, I think that this will make that problem worse than it was before. We're not going to fix the fact that we have to essentially bribe business to come into Louisiana and open their doors. We're not going to fix any of those problems. We're simply going to fix a broken revenue stream for the state government while taxpayers are left on the hook for that.
Okay, so right now, if you had a crystal ball, And we're just talking about sales tax, so where do you think the resolution may lie?
Uh, are you asking how I would fix it, or are you asking?
No, no, I'm asking for you to go into the crystal ball right now and tell us, will it be a third of a penny? Will it be half penny, 40, 4/10, or what?
I'm guessing it's 4/10. If I had to guess at the end of this legislative session, if something gets passed, I think it's 4/10 of a penny. And the question is going to be more or less around what parts of the penny to clean, or pennies to clean. I think that's probably what's most likely to happen. I don't think that takes a whole lot of insight into the process to determine. It's really the only thing that's being talked about at the legislature. It's the only thing that's really being talked about among people at the Capitol. I think that assuming something gets done this session, I believe that it'll be probably 4/10 of a penny.
Okay. So if anybody has a question, go ahead and ask the question or make a comment. Love to hear from you. So if you had to do it, you asked me if I'm asking you what you would do if you had the, say, dictatorial power to be able to decide.
Sure. I would look towards what the legislature promised that they would give us in 2016 when they passed this, which is structural reform. Structural reform to the budget. I think we're going to get some sunshine into the budget with the Louisiana checkbook at some point in time. I think we really need to know how the money's being spent versus how it's being appropriated. And we need access to the budget to be able to open it up and to make cuts across the board if necessary. On a tax level, we have a ton of credits and exemptions. I don't think that anyone disagrees with that. I think we're one of the top states as far as what we give out in terms of credits and exemptions. I think some of that is in the code because we have an uncompetitive business climate in Louisiana, so we have to make up for that somehow, and we do that with credits. I think that we need to establish a system that works for business, works for individuals, and encourages people to come here and grow long term rather than continually changing the code every few years. That's how I would fix it. I think that if we were to really address the problems that we have by trying to fix the underlying issues that exist in Louisiana, that Louisianans we wouldn't have to go through all these special sessions anymore, but we would have a tax code that was set up that would really work for us and would encourage people to come here without us having to open up the checkbook and write a check for them to come open their doors here in Louisiana.
So what is the status of the checkbook?
It was passed in the last regular or special session. I'm not entirely sure that it is fully funded. I think it was passed and it's put in a good ideas pile. I think that the governor's office, the administration has said that they're rolling out something a little bit better than LaTrack the beginning of July. I haven't been able to see that yet. I'm very hopeful that it provides us a clear look at the state's finances, how money's being spent across state government. I hope that there are very few questions left for people who want to get a feel for how their money's being spent once it's released. I don't know what it looks like. We'll see. But I hope that it is state of the art and it puts us on a plane with that of Ohio, where we can really open up a checkbook, we can search expenditures, and we can see exactly where our state dollars are being spent. I think that it's probably the simplest request that the taxpayer can make of the government is, if we're going to give you money, show us where you're spending it. And hopefully that's what this program will do.
Okay, so I'm going to read a comment here. I do see an error in the comment, but and hopefully I have the name correct. David Rogo. I don't know if I had said it right, but he does ask the question: why does JBE, meaning Governor Edwards, supporters blame the previous administration for today's problems when Edwards was the Senate Finance Chairman of that administration? That's the error. I mean, he wasn't the Senate Finance Chairman. He was in the House. But the point I think that he's raising is that he voted for the budget. And so why do people supporting Edwards, not blame him for voting for the budget, and why cast the blame on Bobby Jindal?
I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I think that for if Governor Edwards doesn't want to accept any blame for where we're at in the state, I think that is that's a little bit disingenuous on his part. I'm not entirely sure that he wouldn't accept some of the blame. I think he voted for 6 of the 8 general budgets, if my memory serves me well. And I think that history has proven out that those budgets were not founded upon solid rock, if you will. I think that some of that has been cleaned up as we've moved along, but at the same time, while we may not be using one-time money like we were in the past, we are still requiring more and more money to fund the state government. And I think that's one area where a lot of blame does go towards this governor. There was, in the regular session, both chambers of the legislature passed and sent House Bill 321 by Representative Rick Edmonds to the governor's desk. And the governor vetoed that bill. And what it would have done is it would have opened up state government to where the joint legislative budget or committee on the budget would have had access to funded vacancies and money that they appropriate for vacant positions within state government, and whether or not those positions are filled and where that money goes. The governor vetoed that simple request from the legislature. He continues to ask legislators to, if they want to cut government, to put their name on it, to say this is where I want to cut state government. But he's vetoing their ability to have the information to make decisions like putting a cut on funded vacancies. So I think that it's a shell game. I think that state government is not something that people can have much trust in anymore. I think that you probably see that if you talk to much of anyone in Louisiana, either side of the aisle.
Sure.
I don't think that trust in state government at this point in time. And I think that that's something that state government has done a really good job of earning, to be honest with you.
Okay, I see that the last question was from David Rougeau. So thank you, David. Appreciate it. That being the case, there's the argument that I read in the Advocate, I think the last sentence of a column that from yesterday, I believe, and basically what is, if I can just summarize it, and that is that the Republicans would be voting for a increase in sales tax or an extension of part of the sales tax, depends on how you want to debate it, and a reduction of tops. So you're going to get the blame anyway, so why don't you just go ahead and vote for the complete tops, and which would be half penny.
I think that there are a lot of reasons why we should look into tops and look at reforming that as well. I think that as legislators come into session this time around, I think they really need to search deep in their hearts about how people in their districts would want them to vote. I think that there is a certain level of echo chamber that is occurring in the Capitol, and they're hearing over and over in the Capitol and from people who frequent the Capitol that there's no other way but to raise this tax. What are people in their districts saying to them? What are people in their districts feeling? I think that that's what needs to be paid attention to. I think that there's enough money to fund tops, to fund a number of things within the state budget. If only we could have a clearer view as to where that money is being spent. I think that there are places where we could make cuts. How much money are we appropriating to funded vacancies that's spent somewhere else that we don't know where it's being spent? That's a question I don't have an answer to, and that's a shame. I think that there should be a simple equation that a legislator performs before they decide to raise tax dollars. Before they ask me or any other taxpayer for more of our money, I think that they should simply be able to prove to us that every dollar that they're bringing in is, number one, accounted for, and number two, being spent well. And I think that if they could prove that to the voter, to the taxpayer, that they wouldn't have too many people who were arguing with them about whether or not to raise taxes. I don't think that they would have to raise taxes because I think there's enough waste within state government that we could avoid that. But I don't know that you could have anyone on your program who could honestly tell you that state government can, number one, really account for all the money that's coming in and going out, and number two, that it's all being spent well and correctly. I don't think that anyone can honestly make that claim, and that's sad, but that's why people don't trust state government.
Right, and I agree with what you're saying there. I know that we did an interview last week with Bernie Pincinat, and he basically stated that in terms of his findings, that it is a lack of trust, belief that cuts can still be made. But let's talk about the cuts real quickly. We have about 3 more minutes. I know that you have to go. So what we're talking about, I mean, we cannot have the debate right now as to whether or not there needs to be more cuts in areas. I mean, we can't talk about efficiencies right now. We've got to talk about only whether or not to spend the money or not spend the money. So if we don't spend the money, do you think that that we will have the problems with the nursing homes, the universities, the prisoners being released, the district attorneys not being paid, and so therefore cut back in the number of cases during the year? I mean, that is what is being proclaimed, projected. Go ahead, please.
Sure. I don't believe it. I think that these are political scare tactics. If you look at the nursing home thing, which has kind of faded away now, it was threatened that folks would be kicked out of nursing homes if this budget crisis wasn't fixed. And it turns out that LDH, if we found out the last day of this last special session, LDH is sitting on somewhere between $40 and $60 million that was just laying around. It seemed like they kind of viewed it as couch cushion money. I think that there's a lot of that in state government, and I think that if there was no tax passed and the governor really wanted to fund these things, I think he could do it. I don't buy for a second that any of these things have to happen. I do buy that this governor wants to grow the size of state government. He's proven that with Medicaid expansion, among other things. He has no interest in shrinking the size of state government. He has no interest in finding efficiencies. All that he is interested in is growing the size of government. That's been borne out time after time, and it's going to continue to be borne out. But you said something at the beginning of that question: is we can't talk about reforms right now. We can't talk about those things right now. Why not? I know that the call was written in a certain way.
Right, and that's all I was referring to in terms of the call.
And it's not a criticism on you, because you're talking about the way that the governor has framed the session. But if I'm a taxpayer, and I am, if I'm a taxpayer in Louisiana, I'm going to ask a question. If not now, when? You told us 2 years ago you were going to fix it. You didn't do anything. You didn't fix it. You didn't fix the budget. You didn't fix taxation. And we're not even getting a constitutional convention. We might get a study of a constitutional convention, but we know what happens with studies in this state. If not now, if you're not going to fix the problem now, if you're not going to reform the problems now, when are you going to do it? And do we really believe that you're going to do it at some point in time? I, for one, have no faith that it's going to happen. I have faith that they're going to raise taxes. I have faith that they're going to continue to spend money without telling me where it's spent, but I have no faith that they're actually going to fix the problems that plague the state moving forward. None at all. And that's a sad day.
Okay. Well, we're up to the point. John K., listen, thank you so much. Americans for Prosperity. We'll check in with you later on during the session. Hopefully, maybe the last one day, and we get some kind of resolution.
I think we're all tired.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, thank you so much. I'm going to end the program. Those people watching, please share. Thank you again.